So I'm not even going to go there, but that opens up a whole other um, line of discussion. But I was busy. I wasn't too busy to give you unlimited sorry, but I was too busy to prevent it from happening at all. Which, and we all know that Krishna is God, and God is infinite, and he knows everything, and he can be anywhere at any time in any way that he chooses. So obviously, he chose to allow it to happen. Right? That's the unspoken answer. Um, and everybody in that discussion is smart enough and aware enough to realize that fact. Um, and so I think that you talk about this a lot. You say, well, this is Krishna's Leela. This is the way it's happening. And, and that kind of brings to mind the other thing, that we are not the doer, right? We're the observer, and the Gyanis talk about that we're not really doing anything. Our true identities are just observing what's happening. So there's and then in the Mahabharata, there's a lot of talk about how destiny is playing itself out, and there's this fine line that's at least up to the point that I've read, that's referred to indirectly, where some people are saying, well, if it's destiny, I can do whatever I want, right? It's going to happen. What's going to happen is going to happen. And then there are others like Yudhishthir who says, you know what, the most important thing that I can do is to adhere to, I forget what it's called, but a certain kind of ethic or code of conduct, and let what happen. Let what happens, right? That's what guides him. I mean, now that I'm talking about it, he appears to be the most realized person in that group. Even though he always comes back to a very fundamental reason that's nobody can really argue about, but that people keep forgetting, right? In other words, to behave in a certain way and not worry about what happens as a result of that behavior. And so that whole gambling thing, right, where his primary focus was to respect his elders and to make sure that he was doing right with respect to, the king is asking me to do this, so I have to do it, even though it's against my own best interests. Because of who he is and because of my relationship with him, I have to do it, and come what may, I will do that. Even to the point of getting called back to ultimately get. Well, I think I answered my own question.
Okay, next question.
But I didn't know that answer until I talked about it, because it's very confusing, right? I mean,
Well, in the Mahabharata, there's a number of things going on. It's in one sense largely a book about the moral life, the Dharma, religious life, and at the same time, of course, the central piece, in one sense, of the Mahabharata is the Bhagavad Gita, and the story is full of intrigue, political intrigue, romance. It's a soap opera, and it's building up. The story is building up to the point where there's going to be a world war, basically, and so the audience is listening and developing feelings towards different characters and so on and so forth, who are vividly described there, and thus the author is able to kind of really capture the attention and emotions of the readers through the description of the characters, through the nature of the narrative, which is just like happens in everyday life, but on a big scale. There's going to be a war, and there's, as we say, political intrigue and marital intrigue and relationships and so on and so forth. And so we get to the point where is there going to be a war, or there not going to be a war? Maybe this is going to be negotiated and so forth. And so you keep turning, on the internet every day. What's going to happen? Is there going to be a war or not? What's the latest? And various talking heads are giving their opinions and so forth. So it's like that. The book, and of course, it comes to the point where there is going to be a war. It's unavoidable, and you're just ready for the war, and you've all been. Everyone's on the edge of their seat, so to speak, and then the preface to the war is the Bhagavad Gita, which is how to end all wars. How to end the war that your ego, your material identification, is perpetuating, whether you know it or not. We're constantly at war in a world war. The world is at war. In other words, one living being is seen from a materialistic ego perspective as food for another. One person's feast is another person's funeral. That's the world. And so, yes, there is an overt war that's been building up, as I said, and now it's about to happen, but in the context of, Arjuna's decision to participate in it or not. Again, Krishna speaks about a deeper idea of the world, even in overt peace. He says it's at war, because again, one living being is food for another. As I said many times, if you try to, as I had experience, try to free a fly caught in a spider's web, and as I reached for the fly, here came the spider. So you want to free the fly, but you make the spider starve to death. So what do? How do you resolve it? That is, what do they call it?
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole. So that you press down here, it comes up over here. This is the world, the moral life. The moral law is only the moral truth, to be truthful, to be good, if you will, from a moral perspective, is only possible to be so in a shadow-like way, because however good you are, there's some
downside
bad to it. There's some downside to it. Exactly. Therefore, the whole story, the Bhagavad Gita, for example, Krishna explains that if you become a Brahma, who is thought to be the person who was morally perfect in terms of the scriptural prescriptions, scriptural prescribed duties for 100 lifetimes, you take birth as a Brahma. You couldn't be more morally correct than the Brahma, is the idea. But what does Krishna say about the Brahma and those who attain his planet who are similarly morally correct? He says, Abrahma bhuvana loka punara vartina Arjuna. He says, everybody has to die there. And that means they have to come down. They attained a high position. They exhausted the results of their pious acts, and now it's over. They have to come down to earth and up and down. So this is the moral life, up and down. And he distinguishes his own abode in that same verse. Punarvatinojina mamupetya tukunteya punarjanmanavadite. But my abode is different, because punarjanmana, from there one doesn't have to take birth again. So, a different world.
So then what are we doing here?
And everybody in this world is on this roller coaster. And although good people seek to be morally correct, ethically sound, as they should be, and so forth, they lose sight of a higher ideal of good, the capital G good, that can actually be attained by spiritual practice rather than by being religious and morally and politically, whatever, correct. So the difference that I'm highlighting is the difference between a religious and ethically sound orientation to life in pursuit of the good, as opposed to a spiritual, experiential orientation to life in pursuit of the good, wherein it can actually be attained. And that good is such to bring home the point of the impossibility of the perfect of the capital G good in a world where, again, one living being is food for another. That's the norm here. To bring home that point in another way, the world with the capital G good, Krishna's world, how is it depicted? It's obviously turning the moral on its head. And in the Mahabharata, Krishna's a liar. In the Bhagavatam, Krishna is a paramour, parakiya lover. That's like, what? So these depictions of the Leela, descriptions of the Leela, is one of the points that they're trying to bring home. That the moral good, this is a huge aspect of the Bhagavatam, for example, which is the kind of the sequel to the Gita, which is the essence of the Mahabharata. That being that the moral life, the Dharma, is really, as good as it might sound, as much as there are scriptural texts advocating and so forth, from the larger, viewed from the larger picture, it is shrama eva hi kevalam, a waste of time. That's a very heavy statement. Krishna says it at the end of the Gita. He says, give up religion if you want to know me. Give up religion. You're not going to find me within the moral realm. You're not going to find happiness, fulfillment, perfection within the moral realm. Indeed, my realm turns the moral realm on its head, upside down even. What you thought was perfectly good, or was desirable to attain the perfect good, in my Leela shows that we can do the opposite, and be perfect, and attain a perfection that material moral perfection doesn't come close to. So bad karma, good karma, it's all bad. That's the idea. It's all about taking. Karma is the reaction, the result of our taking from the environment, which our material identification kind of forces us to do, because when we identify with matter, which is inert, unconscious, has no capacity to love, reciprocate, then we feel empty. And so we think that by adding on, maybe that'll solve the problem. We're just adding on more of the same, and it's only an appearance of adding on, because you can't keep anything. So material life is, however well nicely we try to make it, so to speak, it's what it is. It's a place of birth and death. It's a place of takers rather than lovers. We are all takers. Somebody asked me some time ago, not too long ago, in a class, a visitor, and I was speaking along these lines, and he said, well, what about the big corporations and all these, multinational companies and the one world, government ideas and things like that, and what about they're doing this and they're doing that, and I said to him, who are they? Who are they? Because they use the term they this, they that. Who are they? And I said to him, what you have to understand is you are they. You are they. You are doing the same thing in your own realm. You take a herd of cows, and if you find a herd of cows and you see one cow is the smallest, and you think she's always being abused because everybody's pushing her out of the way, she has to wait till everybody's done and then get whatever remnants are there, because she doesn't have the fortitude, the strength, the power to push her way in, and so forth. So from a human perspective, we look and we feel sorry for the little cow. So if we take the little cow out and put her in another herd, where she's bigger, then she's going to find a little cow and push her out of the way. And we look and say, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. This is the human sensibility. You're not supposed to do that. That's the norm. But we sense in human society, it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. So we try to adjust it and make it right. And so what this effort in human society is about is the self, the Atma, the soul, consciousness that we're a unit of, rising to the fore as it does in human life, inquiring about itself, presenting itself to us in a way that our self did not present itself to us when we were a cow, when we were a bird, when we were a tree. According to the different body we have, then the self, the higher self, is either facilitated to come out, or it's covered over. It's the same self, equal. All atmas, all souls are equal, but their vehicles are different. So if you drive a Volkswagen, I drive a BMW, I mean, we can both put our foot on the gas completely, but I'm going to go faster than you are. So the human body is a particular evolutionary, if you will, body, in which, from the Vedic point of view, the point of view of Vedanta, the self, the Atma, the consciousness that's moving through different forms of life. Why does it move? What's this movement about? What's really happening is the world is moving around. It's not a geocentric world. It's not a heliocentric world. It's an Atma-centric world. The world is moving around consciousness. Now, you touched on this in your question, that the world is moving around an observer. One point I want to add to what you said, not only is it an observer, it's an observer, but it's also a desirer. First of all, it's an observer, it's a witness. Now, as we know, some things only happen because somebody's watching.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in one sense, without the observer, the world isn't happening. Doesn't mean the world isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a purely idealistic perspective. It is there, but what will happen in it is dependent upon the observer.
Mm-hmm.
And the observer is a witness, but it's also a doer, an agent of action by the force of its desire.
Mm-hmm.
So as it desires, then the world responds accordingly. And in that regard, there is a higher order as well. We are unit of consciousness. The God it is the reservoir of consciousness. So we have, we're an agent of action, a doer. It means we have will, desire. But we're not independent in willing such that whatever we will happen. If a farmer wants to grow wheat, then he or she is going to plant seeds and till the field and do everything necessary to grow a nice crop. But if it doesn't rain and the sun doesn't come out, there's no wheat. So we can see that practically we are dependent upon some cooperation on the part of nature in relation to our desires for them to be fulfilled. Now we can fight against that. And for example, using my example, try to, seed the clouds through technology so it'll rain, And we can try like this in so many ways, and we may do things that we thought we couldn't do, accomplish by these efforts to control nature, to manipulate nature, to be God. I mean, the controller. The word in the Vedanta used for God is Ishwar, the controller. So you can't become an atheist and do away with God. It's not happening. You become the controller then. You become the one who determines your own destiny and so forth. And then, if you take an atheistic philosophy fortified by scientific conjectures or interpretations of scientific facts and observations, you interpret from an atheistic perspective, and then you have this idea that you can manipulate nature and become immortal. That's what the wealthy people just south of us are, said to be spending all their money on. Immortality in Silicon Valley. So we're interested in the same thing. You look at which strategy is more, well thought out. You're going to freeze your body, or going to, they have pills for, to slow down aging and so forth and so on. But I mean, to stop death, how are you going to stop somebody from slipping on a banana peel and cracking his head open, right? So it's a pretty big task. You can convince yourself to one extent or another, hey, the lifespan is increasing. We're making it. We're doing it. People used to believe in God and they had shorter lives. So now we don't believe in God. We're increasing the life and we're getting there. Well, it's as funny as it just was. It's a joke. if you look at it like this, everyone wants to be perfectly happy forever. Hmm? I mean, that's just basically what we're pursuing in life through one action or plan or another.
Mm-hmm.
And so, who's got a better plan? Is the question to accomplish that. At least we've got a plan that, in theory, you can realize that, and it takes into consideration the impossibility of doing so otherwise, which is fairly apparent. I mean, it's pretty apparent that it's impossible to figure out and manipulate the world in such a way as to end death when you don't even know but a fraction about a fraction of the world. All right? I mean, we live on one planet in one galaxy, about this, what they observed, what they call 500 million, galaxies or whatever. I mean, come on, it's like it's a very questionable idea. And our idea is, well, at least it acknowledges the impossibility of the odds against that are considerable. So here's another alternative. Why not think outside of the box, the Vedanta says? The box of your head, which is really a small box. Why not come outside of your head? Krishna says in the Gita that we see things through the lens of our senses and make determinations about those perceptions by our manas, by our mind. And we get sensations and we make a decision. That's good, that's bad, that's happy, that's sad, that's hot, that's cold. And we create a world in the box of our head where we live. And it's totally an illusion, even from a scientific point of view, what reality is. And we live in that little box, call it a sacred box. It's my box. And so forth. So, but what has it to do with reality? In your box, it's cold. In mine, it's hot, and we're living in the same, geographical space here. So, which is it? Obviously, each of our readings is neither is comprehensive. It's not really weighing in on the nature of being and reality and so forth. So, to go out of the box means that's what ecstasy means. I don't mean the drug, but that's an attempt for the same thing, to get outside of the box, to get beyond the limits of my senses. That's the meaning of ecstasy, beyond the senses, which are limited, and that we feel that in human society, that the senses are limited. We don't find in the animal society that the animals are trying to move beyond their animality. There are certain parameters in which they live. I'm a tiger, I live like this, I eat like this. It's all figured out. I'm a cow, I live like this. I'm a bird, I live like that. Birds don't try to become cows, cows don't try to become birds. Human beings try to become everything, right? We try to, as I say, we try to fly high in the sky like an eagle. We try to go to the bottom of the ocean like a dolphin, or what, it's weird. Why are we doing that? Because from the Vedanta point of view, the Atma, the self, that is not restricted, ultimately, only in a provisional sense is it restricted from expressing itself through different forms of life, but it doesn't die when the body dies. It gets another body. It gets a human body, and that body is particularly as a special body, because the self is coming to the fore and it's starting to feel itself, so to speak, and it knows it senses it has no limitations. So it can't settle for the limitations of the human society or human abilities and so forth. And we try to extend them and be more. That's what humans are doing. We explain it as such. Hmm? And why I was saying we're changing bodies? Hmm? The world is going around the self. It's observing and it's desiring. Hmm? It can't desire and have all its desires fulfilled because it's only a spark of consciousness, and our consciousness source is the ultimate determining will. Hmm? So we say, I have a will, and it will be fulfilled or not, dependent upon the higher will sanctioning or not sanctioning. Hmm? So in my example of the farmer, then the rain here is God. Hmm? So there's a form of God we call the Mahavishnu, for example, the Paramatma, that presides over material nature and witnesses our witnessing and our desiring, and sanctions that material nature will reciprocate in this way, respond in this way or that way, in terms of how we are interacting with nature. Hmm? So we're an observer, yes, but we have some will. Hmm? And then there's the superior will. So sometimes it's said, not a blade of grass moves without the will of God. So does that mean that, hey, what can we do? God's doing everything. When we were living here years ago, before the temple was built, when you were here, Abai, and I took you and I said, see that over there? We're going to build a temple over there. Believe me. So we were building the bathhouse, and we were going to have our first little festival because I thought, well, we got to have a place for people to bathe, etc., to invite them up here. We were living in tents, and we were also bathing with a little thing, a bag, of water hung on a tree, and evacuating in the woods and so forth. But I didn't think it would be too comfortable of a proposal to invite the city dwellers, to live as austerely as we were. So we were building a bathhouse, first and foremost thing. And I thought if we get that done, we can invite some people up. So anyway, the date, I think it was a Janmāṣṭamī, maybe our first Janmāṣṭamī here was approaching. And the guy that was building the bathhouse for us was going a little slow, and I said, like, I want to, we got, 3 weeks. Oh, yeah, okay, no problem. So I'm watching it, it's like, okay, it's like, we got 2 weeks. But he made me feel like he's one of those contractors, like, hey, I know what I'm doing, okay? The kind you don't want to hire. It's like, he's not there to do what you want exactly, So I said, it's 2 weeks. He says, hey, man, I told you, we'll get it done. Don't worry, we'll get it done. Okay, it doesn't look to me like you're going to. So then 1 week, I realized 3 days, it's not happening. So anyway, after 3 days, I said, what's happening here? It's not, going to be done. He said, hey, look, this is a spiritual place, right? I said, yeah. He said, well, the way I look at it is if it's going to get done, it's going to get done. Right? We're not in control, Swami. I held my tongue from saying, well, we'll see how the paycheck works out. If it's going to happen, I guess it'll happen. Don't count on feeding your family. That philosophy. So, yes, not a blade of grass moves without the will of God. That's true. But we have a will also. That means that our will is dependent upon his will. So he may sanction, may not sanction. Or allow material nature to sanction or not sanction. So we're a factor in what happens. We are an agent of action. And if we were not so, then the scriptures would say, do this and don't do that, would have absolutely no meaning. We'd have no choice in the matter. If we weren't an agent of action, if we didn't have any will, then what would be the meaning of saying you should do this and you shouldn't do that? Right? Mm-hmm. So it's an important point that We are agents of action, and we desire, and as we desire, then the world is moving around that accordingly, and so if we desire in relation to the world, then we're going to stay within the jurisdiction of the world. So that's what I mean by an atma-centric world. So, so we're staying in one place, and the world's moving around us. As long as you have material desires, then the nature of the material world is that it's magical. Seeds turn into trees. Holy cow! There's a tree inside of a seed, and the tree bears fruits, has seeds, makes many trees, and everything's transforming. Is my point. And radically, I mean, the difference between here's a seed. If you tell a kid, if a child says, "Dad, I'd like an apple," and so you give him an apple. So here you go. And he says, "What are you talking about? I asked for an apple. You give me a seed. You give me this little thing here. What's that? Put it in the ground." He says, "I asked for an apple. You give me a little tiny thing and tell me to put it in the ground." No, yeah, put water on it, put sun on it, come back in a few years, and you'll have an apple. So the difference apparently between a seed and an apple is extraordinary. Just to emphasize the point, the extent to which the world is constantly transforming, right? Everything's constantly in flux and transforming. And there's one thing that's remaining constant, and that's the observing factor of the ever-changing material phenomena. And so the body is one form of matter's transformation. It's a transformation that corresponds in some way with the desires of the self. And like all manifestations of matter, it has a duration. At a certain point, the fact that nature is in transformation is going to become more apparent to you. It's apparent to other observers, but after a while, it starts to become apparent to you. You start to, I'm breaking down here, as so forth. But it's just something that's constantly going on. We look at our bodily life as some separate thing from the world, but it's just it's just the nature of the realm. And so as long as your desires are in relation to the world, then the world's going to keep forming around you, around those desires. Even you can see it yourself. If you with good association, you have certain desires, you want to change your life, your body will start to change, right? Change your association, and thereby your habits, and so forth. So here we are. It's an atma-centric world. The world's moving around the self, and so the whole idea is then what? To give the self good association, good insight into what it is, what its prospect is, and so forth, and how to attain the capital G good that you are a unit of. We're trying to be good, right, politically correct, ethically sound, and so forth in this world, and that's a good idea. But as much as we think that is what constitutes the capital G good, it is so bad that it is at the loss of any insight into the self, which is a unit of the capital G good. One unit of that, attaining that, makes the whole world of the small g good, the moral realm, look bad, however good it is. That's what Krishna's saying in the Gita. You understand? What? Just your tiny atomic consciousness self realizing that does more good and is more good and is the capital G good in comparison to the moral realm, and however good one could be. That's not a reason for not being good in the world. It's just you need to put the two together. Indeed, being good in the world from a worldly point of view has something to do with attaining the ultimate good. So there are ways to act in the world that are better than others that will serve to foster realization of the self. And ultimately realization of the self, as I speak about it, means realization of the self in relation to its source. So full realization of the self must be that which is derived from ananya bhakti, full bhakti, pure bhakti, because that will draw out, that influence will draw on every aspect of the self. Just like the world draws on every aspect of the self and creates a fictitious kind of person. We think is a full. We think it's good to be a full person. I mean, it is, humanly, psychologically, and so on and so forth. But what we find in the Leela is partial people. From our perspective, they're partial people. Chandravali, Radharani's competitor, for example, chief competitor in Vrindavan, she is like a personification of one emotional aspect of Radha, and another gopi is another emotional aspect, another gopi, another. They're like partial people. You understand? We look at Chandravali, we think, she needs a little bit of, counseling. Develop out, she should respond differently to Krishna at different times. That's not, she shouldn't take that from him, So she's a partial person. These partial people are more people than our whole people are. Fully balanced psychologically, that's a good thing and whatnot, but where does it end? And it ends. That's where it ends. That's the point. It ends. It ends. And it ends, unfortunately, in most cases, at the cost of knowing the self. Now, there's a way to bring the two together, of course. That's beautiful, because the spiritual perspective, unlike the moral perspective unto itself, or the psychological, let's say, good unto itself, the spiritual good takes into consideration the psychological good, the moral good, the ethical good. It sees it as a shadow of itself, the ultimate good. And therefore it does speak about a way to act in the world, how to be whole. What is sattva, for example? Sattva is a material influence. It's advocated. It's the influence of nature that brings about balance. That's what human psychology is about, being a balanced person and so forth. Being a balanced person in the world, in the context of pursuing the worldliness, which you're a unit of. You're not part of the bad, which is, again, even the good is bad. You're not part of it. We're not matter. We matter. And matter only matters if it matters to us. It's inert. So the good, and Leela portrays the good in a way that even may look psychologically bad, or morally bad, ethically bad. It's depicted like that for a purpose, in one sense, to emphasize the problem with material perfection, which is like an oxymoron. There's no perfection within. If perfection is to live forever, as people seem to like to do, that's what they're working for. And it's not happening in this realm. So again, why not think outside of the box? Vedanta says you've looked at it for eons in a particular way. You fought as a tiger, as an elephant, as an insect, as a bird. You've tried it flying, as a fish. You tried it swimming. Stop breathing and live underwater. Try it like that. Hmm? In so many ways, we tried to live forever. And that's what everybody's striving for. The Darwinian struggle to exist. Adapt. Grow. Add some fins. Add some wings. And so forth. To live forever. The eternal pursuit of the fountain of youth. And the Vedanta says, stop looking out there. It's inside. It's you. You are unit of that. And go about it in a reverse way. Rather than trying to conquer and control and exploit in this way, step back and have gratitude for nature. Recognize your dependence on nature rather than trying to control it. And then you go move a little easier in the world. Like, okay. Somebody was telling me the other day that they said that I was talking with an Indian man. I can't remember exactly what he said. Something about technology moving, this and that. And he said, yeah, it's all good. He said, but you know, if you don't have enough time to take a little rest after lunch, then what's life's not worth living. Tranquilo, they say, you know, it goes to tranquilo, yeah, it'll happen, you know. Of course, it's, you know, take it easy. It's, so, this stepping back a little bit, and in Hinduism, to revere nature. It's not to conquer nature or to dismiss nature, but to revere nature. And recognize, acknowledge our dependence on nature for accomplishing anything. In order to see, we need light. Light comes from sun. So we worship the sun. We show regard. This type of gratitude, if you will, is the beginning of love. And as I say, if you love someone, they'll tell you all their secrets. So nature will show you the secret. The secret of nature is what? That I have a soul, and it's you. In human form of life, it can be known. And wow. That is a secret. That is a whole entirely different bag of knowledge, tricks. It's like, whoa. Very, very different idea. And so then now to approach it, move, as I say, in a different way. But my point is that this spiritual perspective of Vedanta, it takes into consideration the idea that one should be psychologically balanced, that one should be morally and ethically sound, and so on and so forth. But it has a rudder to it, that is, for a higher purpose, Not unto itself. Unto itself, it's fraught with frustration. The whole world's a compromise. Who are you going to vote for? You know, you have to pick and choose. I mean, I see your posts about Donald Trump, and I appreciate them. Laugh at that, but I mean, you know, it's a compromise. It doesn't matter who it is. It's going to be compromised in some respect, for everybody. Right? It's a totally flawed picture. And so the Leela's painting another picture. It's as if Krishna was painting the Leela, and then there was this other canvas over here that he needed to change color, so he went like that. You know? And that's the world over here. So far out. But what's the Leela like? And this is a very beautiful idea of Gaudiya Vedanta, that the world, as much as we speak about the world is problematic, it's flawed, this, that, and everything, still, when we look at it from the perspective of Gaudiya Vedanta, it has such beauty, meaning, and value. We see it as derived. It is derived from the Leela. it's a derivative. So there's value in it because it tells us something about that world. It's not just a symbol, like a flag is a symbol of the nation. You see the flag and you think, America, what it's about, and I worship the flag, and so forth, if you're that type. And it gives you these emotions and so forth, and it's that's America. That's America. It's really just some rag, some cloth and some colors. It's not really America. It's a concept that transcends the flag, right? So this is your general idea of symbolism. The symbol is actually really different than the ideal that it represents, which is abstract and kind of intangible. And so you try to make it tangible by giving it a shape. But in Gaudiya Vedanta, the symbolism idea is different. The symbol actually has something to do with the idea. What does a flag have to do, with it? I mean, it's like with a nation. I mean, only as much as you create a meaning to it. But the world inherently has some meaning. Humanness, human life. The Leela, human life, is like the human, like the Leela. And Krishna is human-like. And so there's something that in the world and about our lives that corresponds with the reality because it's derived. And this is a way in which Gaudiya Vedanta posits meaning in the world, value in the world, when seen as a reflection, because then there's so many ways that you can draw on it, take advantage, and so forth, to realize that the pure form of it, if you will, that from which it's derived. Like sometimes the examples given of a reflection, you look at a reflection, everything's there, just turned backwards. You need to turn it around. So instead of being self-centered and thinking oneself to be this American, man, woman, Indian, bird, cat, dog, insect, think I'm an Atma. I'm a unit of consciousness. I have a source. I should move in relation to serving the source. That's my position. So forth. So that's the chain. Otherwise, everything's the same. Therefore, when Krishna saved Nanda Maharaj from Varuna underwater, and Varuna, the god of the waters, paid respect to Krishna, and his father saw it, he thought, wow, Krishna's special, I guess. So when they came above the water, then he told the rest of the inhabitants of Vrindavan what happened, and they said, wow, Krishna's got some special powers. Can you tell us, Krishna, about our next life, what it'll be like? And he showed them. It'll be like this, like it is now. It'll be like that. He showed them the Golok. It's a lesson in that for us, that it will be like that, but it will be Krishna-centered. And that will make it entirely different. All the problems are taken out. And therefore, there's no problem even with the bad. You understand? What might be morally bad, there's no problem with it. Because the real problem is self-centeredness, selfishness. And everybody in the world agrees that selfishness is bad and unbecoming. Everyone agrees. So we're not teaching anything that everybody doesn't agree with. We just want to take it to the limit. To end all selfishness. How we do that? Politically, through communism? Good luck. It didn't work. And it was in the socialist, communist perspective, is at the cost of one's individuality. You get the group, but you lose your individuality. And in capitalism, you get your individuality, but you lose the group. Right? You're competing with everybody. Everybody's at odds with one another. So Gaudiya Vedanta wants to say, like, you take the capitalism the best and the socialism the best, and put them together. You have the group, and within the context of the group, the consensus, all for Krishna. Then there can be so many. That's individuality, because he's also because the center can take all types, all the types of enjoyment that you want. He's the center of all that. The whole range of emotional life and so forth, which is our life. Emotional life is the life. This is another important point. From the Vedanta perspective, our emotional life derives, it plays out in the mind, but it derives from consciousness itself. This would be true also in Advaita Vedanta, that because of the touch of consciousness, subtle matter takes on quasi-consciousness-like condition, and an emotional life is created. But their idea is that when you transcend that emotional life, then there is no emotional life. But the very thing that brought about the emotional life, consciousness, wouldn't it be more reasonable to conclude it has the power for emotional life? That's the bhakti perspective. Here, a part of that emotional life is expressing itself in relation to matter. When it expresses itself in relation to itself, that I would call lila. And the full range of human emotions and all that, it's like, what is lila like? It means, and they lived happily ever after, right? It's every feel-good movie, put together, and there's not this, more accurate depiction of existential angst and what's the term for the modern movies? Postmodern perspective. Like, was there any meaning in that, or like, there was kinds of different meaning, and I don't know. And yeah, see, that's what life's like, right? That's why I would like to be a transcendentalist. And it's all relative, and this happened, those kind of movies. So it's like every feel-good movie, and good guys win, and there's only good guys, and so on and so forth. At the same time, someone might say, well, if you were happy all the time, how would you know it? In other words, without feeling unhappiness, then how would you know what's happening? Some people make that argument. The nature of the bliss of prema is such that it's full, and it's always increasing at the same time. And there is the viraha, separation in the lila. So it has both sides, both banks of the river, both the high tide and the low tide of union, and then a sense of separation from Krishna. And both are blissful. Here, the separation is painful, and enough union, and it becomes painful too, and we want some separation. It's not like that with Krishna. We don't want separation, but it comes to enhance the feeling of union. It serves the union. The separation is part of the lila. Krishna disappears behind a tree for a moment. And the cowherds feel separation, and then the union again. So, as you can see, it's thought of in this way for good reason. This world is a reflection of that. There is symbolism here, so to speak. But the symbol is not just like a flag that doesn't have anything to do with the world. It actually has something to do with that world. It's a reflection of it. It looks like it, Looks like it. You have to look close. It's called aprakrita. It's like the prakriti, like material world, but it's not quite. It's different, quite different, actually. And again, everyone lives happily ever after. Something like that. And so, the Mahabharata is another aspect of the Mahabharata. One aspect is it's teaching the moral good. And in the context of teaching the moral good, it also points out, to some extent, how that's a real gnarly issue, and it has to be determined also with scripture and with reason, given different times and different circumstances, what is the good thing to do. And whatever the good thing is, there's going to be some bad that comes with it, but anyway, it's the best we could, so that it all comes out in there. And it teaches basic moral principles and shows how the moral principles are turned into moral laws at different times in different circumstances. My guru used to give the example sometimes that the scriptures are like law books by which the law is determined. And that used to have a really, like, when we were young, a really like, whoa, yeah, that sounds great. We've got law books here, So you kind of get this kind of black and white security. There are rights and there are wrongs. That's good to know. And here the scripture is an absolute good. But if you look closely at the analogy, you see, well, there's more to it than what he's saying than that. The law books are there, but the law is determined on an ongoing basis. When we say, Your Honor, the law said this at this date, and at that date it said this, and this circumstance said that. Therefore, in these particular circumstances, I think the law should say this. And the opposing attorney says, well, I cite the law this, and I think, and a new law is written, right? And a determination is made in every circumstance. So the scripture is dynamic. And the small g moral good is determined on an ongoing basis with time and circumstance and different situations and so forth. There's a moral principle, and then there are the moral laws which can change. And so this is one thing, one part of the Mahabharata. Right? And then, as I said, the Gita takes it to a transcendental level. But there's another aspect of the Mahabharata too, which is that the players in it, the Pandavas, the principal players, they love Krishna.
Right.
They love Krishna. So you can become attached to Arjuna, to Yudhisthira. This guy, right. He's got it together.
Yeah.
And you can get bhakti, even without reading the Gita. You can develop some affinity for Krishna's devotees. Something like that. It's very special. And Leela. Leela, again, you can look at the Mahabharata and say, that's a little crazy, or I don't know about that. Today, Gandhari had, 100 sons and hit her stomach or something like that, and 100 sons came out. And
There was it was a very interesting process.
Yeah. But it's not to be looked at, in contrast to how we do things. It's to be looked at for its deeper message and teaching, and the perspective of the Gandhari. What was her perspective? What was her ideal in life and so forth that made her, or whomever, look at certain things which we think would be really important as to be less important. It's an acknowledgement there in the book. People are going to die.
Yeah.
That's a big one right there. That's a book's written in an entirely different way. It accepts from the beginning everybody's going to die. And so there's a higher principle involved throughout the book, right? It's pervading the book. There's something called liberation to be attained. Mukti. Okay. So it casts then everything in this world in a certain light, of relativity, and so we don't make the same effort towards material perfection, and ultimately, as I said, towards ending death, in the way that the materialist implicitly does. In all forms of life. What is it? Try to live forever, right? Try to live forever. It is possible. This is the great news of the Vedanta. It's possible. What you want, oh, it's a big affirmation. You can have it. It can be realized. So Leela is teaching also on different levels. It's teaching moral lessons. It's teaching philosophical lessons. And without teaching it, it's conveying a sanskar, impressions for loving Krishna. That's why you can just read the Leela without any philosophy, just become attached to the stories, and it will be good for you. It will play out in due course in you becoming morally concerned and applying philosophically. But in its beginning, therefore it said sometimes just if you just read the Leelas about Krishna, then you'll develop prema. Yes, there's a process. It takes time, but it has such power. So this is kind of the invisible power of the stories. Sometimes we'll emphasize the philosophical power or implications more, or the moral implications, and tell them, this is the implications, this is the meaning, and so like the philosophical implications of the Leela that you mentioned, Draupadi being disrobed in the public assembly, and then later asking Krishna, why did you, you're God, why did you put me in that situation? And why didn't you save me? He said, well, I gave you unlimited sorry. But why was I there in the first place?
Right.
He says, well, I was busy in Dwarka, It was the city of a demon, Maya, whatever, circling over there. I was pretty preoccupied with that. But that's no excuse. You're God. You could be everywhere. You could do everything at once. He says, it's true. Yes, it's true. And I was doing something there. And what was I doing? I was showing that if you are my devotee, like you are, Draupadi, and you are in difficulty, and you hold up one hand and say, Govinda, help me, I might help. But if you let go of your sorry and stop trying to depend on me to some extent, and on yourself to some extent, and put both hands up, then I'll supply you with unlimited sorry. And I want to use you, my devotee, to teach all the devotees this lesson. So this is the real answer. I used you to teach all my devotees. Sometimes I put my devotees in difficult situations. And they may ask me why you did that. But ultimately they don't blame me. They love me. She may ask and wonder and complain, but she's never going to give them up. Never, never. So his devotees are like that. Therefore, he's able to put them in situations in the context of the Leela by which he can teach us how to become a devotee, what is the virtues of it, and so on and so forth. So we see the whole life of the Pandavas, Draupadi, the husbands, and so forth. There were so many difficulties. Why did Krishna put them in all those difficulties? He could have just, why did there even have to be the war? So that is Leela, and through that he's teaching, and we learn from that. And so through the way he interacts with his devotees, in terms of his own wisdom, and there's so many philosophical truths that come out we can take to heart and apply in our practice. Both hands up. Something like that. She was holding on to her sari, and they were trying to, in public, they were trying to disrobe her. She was calling Govinda, and it looked like she was running out of sari. So what can I do? Completely depend on Krishna. Both hands up, and suddenly, the more they pulled her sari, the more sorry there was.
Mm.
And they were the sorry one.
Mm-hmm.
They were in some sorry. They remained as so sorry.
Just sorry.
Thank you so much.
She was liberated, yeah. So,
Thank you. That was,
Draupadi, she is Puri Sambandhi. She loves Krishna like a friend. Sakyarasa. Of the city version. There's a village version and the city version.
mm-hmm.
She and Krishna were just friends. Not like the gopis. They were just friends. It's a big, big friends.
Mm.
What's the time? Long question, deserve a long answer, right?
I
Practically, you gave a lecture.
that
with your question.
that was that hit my heart right on the mark. Thank you so much.
Good, good. Thank you for bringing it up.
It's 11:30.
It's 11:30.
So it's
What else? What's your name?
I'm Cassie.
Kathy, welcome.
Cassie.
Kathy, right?
Cassie.
Cassie.
Yeah, Cassie, short for Cassandra.
Cassandra. Cassie. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Came with Tarun.
Yes.
Tarun came with you. Haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah, it's been a year.
Nice to have you here.
Great to be here.
And Bye. You probably haven't seen Bye in a while.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
while
it's been
for
a
a
while.
bye. I guess I saw you when you were in Portland, so not super long ago.
You saw me in Portland.
Yeah. That was the last time I saw you.
How long are you here for, Bye?
Till Sunday.
Sunday. It's been a while since you've been here, huh?
Yeah, it's not a lot. 2 months since I've been here. It's really great to be
2
back.
years, huh?
Yeah, I think close to 3.